And I'm going to sit towards the edge of the blanket. Hi, I'm Candace Gourdain. Welcome to yoga. We're doing Master the Situation. So we're having technical difficulties as we're getting started together here today. So this is an interesting way to begin a session that's called Master the Situation. I'd like you to come to a seated easy pose. And in fact, we're going to fool around or try several different versions of easy pose. So I want you to look down at your legs. Most of us are sitting on the floor with our legs somewhat crossed. Easy pose is when your ankles are crossed and each of your feet are tucked under the other leg. That's easy pose. That's the one most of us are most familiar with. And it's actually the one that's not so easy. And it's not so easy because it tends to pitch you backward because your legs are upward. So I want you to try putting one foot in front of the other on the mat in front of you so that your ankles are aligned. So both legs are like as flat on the floor as they can be. From the knee to the ankle, everything is flat. From there, bring your hands to your knees and then rock side to side. I want you to locate the sits bones, those two bones that protrude out from the base of the ilium. Those are the hip bones. And then use your hands and kind of grab the flesh of the bottom and move that flesh outward so that you can find the sits bones. Those sits bones are the 2 points of the triangle. A triangle becomes a very important geometrical shape in yoga. So your front legs, your shins, are crossed in front of each other. They make one line in front of you, parallel to, let's say, the front of your mat. And then your two upper leg bones make the sides of the triangle. So 3 sides. The 2 upper leg bones make 2 sides, and then the calves cross to make the 3rd side. Take your hands to the knees and pull the shoulders onto the back. All right, so then inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. I want you to begin to master engaging the abdominals and the diaphragm muscles, because the abdominals and the diaphragm muscles are what keep the poses from drooping. Because in yoga, we're not falling asleep. What we're really doing in yoga is bringing the mind and the body and the spirit into one so that we can meditate into the union of all things, the whole universe. So now with your hands, kind of squeeze your knees so you're sort of holding on. And then lean the upper body a little bit backwards. So you're leaning as far back as the length of your arms, right? You can't go any further because your hands are holding on to your knees. So keep the arms alive. That is, keep the arms kind of squeezing and holding you. Now brace the abdominals and now lift the heart forward and upward. Now sort of relax the arms just a little bit. Precisely administer sensory input. So you should be able to feel whatever it is you're sitting on. You should be able to feel your abdominals. Remember, they're controlling, keeping your posture from drooping or dropping. And you should be able to feel your arms. Inhale through your nose. Ujjayi, exhale through your nose. That means make a little sound like the ocean wave. Carefully, precisely administer your sensory input. I'm going to give you a little bit of neurology because I think it's important that we understand that our brains work in a certain way. And if we can understand that process, just like we can understand how a knee bends, that helps us to change how we are thinking. So the name of this class is Master the Situation, or what I'd like to call it Instant Zen. And so the Zen is that I can control my inner world because that's where I actually live. So as you're inhaling, exhaling, do not become drowsy. Don't go through the motions, but precisely administer your sensory input. We take in all of this sensory input, like from the eyes and the ears and the things that we're touching, and then the internal state, like are you contracting a muscle? And then we make some sort of decision about how we feel about that. And then we usually create a response. This happens so quickly that we believe it's happening instantaneously. It's not. Because we're taking in so much sensation and so much sensory input, it feels like it's a constant. So in yoga, we want to slow down the mind by slowing down the breath to pay attention to each thing in sequence. So first, Sit the sits bones down. From the sits bones to the pubic bone, there's another triangle. So the pubic bone's in front and the two sits bones are in back. Now take the muscles, the perineum, and squeeze between the sits bones and the pubic bone. So that triangle is rising. But then the triangle from the hips down to the knees, that triangle is rooting your base down. So we don't want the muscles to fall asleep. Even in a stretch, we don't want the muscles to just get long and kind of flaccid. We want the muscles to keep their energy. So we're controlling and governing the energy and the vitality of your base. Now open your eyes. So we're going to move a little bit now. Bring your hands in front of your heart like Anjali Mudra. Inhale and circle up. And then exhale, lean over to one side. Let one hand come to the floor. Now, as one hand touches the floor, I want you to notice the sensory input. When my hand went on the floor, I felt it. I felt the mat. I felt my hand. I've decided whether I'm actually going to lean into that hand or I'm just going to kind of touch the floor. Now, take this top arm and reach it up higher and then push the arm down so you're leaning a little bit further over. Now, holding this pose, make the triangle. Remember the sits bones and the knees and the calves. Make that triangle push down into the floor more. At the same time, lift the perineum, that is the pelvic floor muscle, inward and upward so that that triangle is rising up. Inhale as you come up, exhale over to the other side. Same thing happens again. The hand touches the floor and I decide whether I'm going to push down or I'm not going to push down. This top arm reaches up over and then pushes down. Now press the triangle of the hips and the legs down. Lift the pelvic floor muscles in and up and administer like a strong contraction in the abdominals and the diaphragm. Inhale as you come all the way up now and just let the arms down. So one leg stays bent and then stretch the other leg out in front of you or a little bit off at a diagonal. Turn your body towards that long leg for a moment and then flex the toes backward. Bring the hands together in front of the heart in Anjali Mudra. Now, before you move, imagine a string running from the front of your heart, the front of your sternum, forward into your thumbs, and then that string is going up and towards the sky. Now squeeze your shoulder blades together behind your back. That little space of the shoulder blades behind your back, those little area there, is a really important area to keep alive. That really governs how good your posture will be. Now balance your head weight over that string, where the heart is rising forward and upward. Balance the head so that it's not wobbling. And it's perfectly balanced and there's no effort in holding your head up. So with your eyes open now, inhale, circle the arms up overhead. Exhale, extend back. Inhale as you come up. Now exhale into forward fold. So again, your hands might come to the floor straddling this front leg, but you have to decide, am I going to push with these hands? Maybe I'll hold on to my leg and I'll pull a little bit. So now another triangle. There's a triangle that is your sacrum. The sacrum are the lowest vertebrae of the spine. They start at the top rim of the pelvis, that's one line, and then come down to a point like an arrow pointing downward towards your tailbone. That triangle is now pitched forward. In other words, the top of the triangle, that top line of the pelvic bone, is hinging forward. That's important to not overstretch the muscles of the low back. Inhale. Exhale, roll all the way up. Bring the hands together. Inhale, circle up. Now turn your body. Turn away from the long leg and towards the short leg. Drop the arms down. Once you spin and you're holding in this revolve, notice the triangle on the floor again, those two sits bones. And also, the legs are still making sort of a triangle. So push down with the legs, pull down with the shoulders. Today, the goal is to keep the postures alive so that your attention, in psychology, this is called diversion, that our minds focus on what they focus on. And we believe that we have no control over that. We believe that we're only paying attention to the things we have to. But the reality is our minds are conditioned to pay attention to what they've been conditioned to pay attention to. 2 more breaths here. Inhale, keep the diaphragm and the abdominals engaging the posture, and then come back to center. So let's switch legs. One leg is long and the other leg is bent. Now, the leg that's bent, its foot is in towards the upper thigh. The whole point of what we're doing here today is to learn how to sit. That's the whole point. Bring the hands together, turn towards the long leg, the one that's stretched out, pull its toes back. Now remember, with your hands are together at your heart, that's your cue to lifting the front of your heart forward and lifting your heart upward. So do that again. Squeeze the upper back shoulder muscles together behind you. Now, in the Zen Buddhist practice, in order to keep this posture, the Zen master has something called an encouraging stick, which is a stick, and the master will whack your back with this stick to keep you sitting up straight so that you don't lose the energy of the pose from here. Inhale, circle up. Exhale, extend back. Inhale, up. Exhale to forward fold. Let the hands make that decision. So we're administering the sensory input. When I put my hands down, what am I feeling? And am I pushing? Am I pulling? What am I doing with my senses? I'm noticing the earth, my seat, the air, and then what am I feeling and then doing about it? Don't get drowsy. There's a reason I'm chattering at you a lot today. That's to keep your sensory input going. So I'm telling you, notice this. Now notice this. Yoga is not Zen. Yoga teaches us to avoid disturbance by becoming still and peaceful. That's a big difference. So even though you're noticing that something's bothering you, maybe there's a fly flying around your head, don't be disturbed by it. Allow and accept that there is all of this. We can control our reaction. So that's what you're focused on. Inhale, exhale, roll up. So when you come back to center, fix your triangle. Remember your legs, your hips, your pubic bone. Remember the pelvic floor, that's squeezing in. Bring the hands together, touch the heart. Inhale, circle up. Turn away from the long leg, let the arms down. Now when your hands come down, push them down. Lift the spine up. Remember the whacking stick? I would come behind you and I'd whack the upper back so that it doesn't curl and round forward. So you're keeping the front of the chest open and lifting. Inhale. Exhale, release. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is to align your ankles. Hopefully you can see me. Align your ankles so that the bones of the ankles are in a straight line in front of your pubic bone. So I actually have a seam in my pants, but you know where the center of you is. So from the belly to the pubic bone to the ankles. So that your legs are turned open as much as possible. So again, I'm sitting on this blanket so that I can turn the legs open. If that's not possible, then use more props. I just have the one blanket, but you could have 2 blankets, 3 blankets, and then a pillow under each leg so that you feel rooted. So it doesn't matter that the earth is down there. I want you to bring the earth up so that it supports you because our base has to be firm. So the vitality of our base dictates our experience in this world. I'm going to change this one more time. So this is Siddhasana. This is kind of my favorite one because it makes the most sense to me. But you could take this foot to the upper thigh. Remember, we just did this stretch. And then take this other foot, fold it in, and use your hand to move this flesh and fold your feet into the creases right behind your knees. That's a challenge for me. And I always get a foot cramp when I try to do that. So I'm going to try that one more time. Foot to the upper thigh. The other foot comes around. I'm going to grab it and try folding it in. Then I'm going to try to bring my feet sort of like I'm tying a knot so that the 2 feet are in the creases behind my knee. That one works a little bit better for me. So that one's called auspicious pose. That's a really important one because that's really one of the main poses that leads up to lotus pose, which is the tetrahedron. That's a four-sided triangle figure, like a pyramid kind of thing. So the triangle at the base, and then the other three sides, the front side and the two sides, we make that triangle of lotus pose. I can't do lotus pose, and I don't really suggest you do it, because if you grew up in the West, chances are the ligaments in your knees won't do lotus pose, and it's not really worth trying. It's not worth getting it that flexible. More important, get a little bit more mobility in the hips. So this Siddhasana, the auspicious pose, might be something you want to do. Notice that your ankles are crossed so that the bones are not right on top of each other. I like Siddhasana, just one foot in front of the other. Just make sure I alternate once in a while. So let's keep getting the hips open so we could try that auspicious pose again. Take the blanket out. Sit with the legs in front of you. Take one leg, cross it over. Now lift the heart up and forward, almost like I'm trying to take my heart and increase or decrease the distance between my heart and the shin. Now, that's a big stretch. Practice kind of flexing and pointing at this top ankle so that you don't have a tendency to crack. See how my ankle's kind of twisted around? Don't do that. Keep the ankle what we call hard. So I'm flexing the foot and keeping the ankle really straight and hard so nothing can happen to it. I won't crack that ankle. So then I'm going to walk this front foot out and then cradle this top leg and see if I can do that. Okay, I know this is a challenge. Same thing. So hand to the bicep, wrap around, hold in and pull up. Now fix your posture. So if you're struggling here and you got your back all around it, then you're not practicing this. You're practicing pain, and pain is not useful, because once you create pain, your brain's going to go back and go, I'm in pain, I'm in pain. So don't create pain. Remember, in yoga, we're trying to avoid the distraction of pain. That's the whole point of these poses. Let's try the other side. All right, so again, let me give you different versions. You can cross, have the leg out. You can walk the foot in. If you can do that, cradle the leg and pull it in. You can hold that. You can stretch the leg out. Fix your back. So you should have something that tells you. So you can sit up if you have a wall. You can sit up against the wall, and that could remind you. So you should be able to feel sort of the back of your head and the 2 points of the shoulders, not just the hump of the mid back. So make sure you do that. Then come all the way down. We'll do that same thing. Cross the ankle over. Bring the shin into the chest. This one is not only easier, but I prefer this because there's no chance of you hurting your back and you're not kind of grab. Same thing. Try cradling. Wrap around. Pull in. Try stretching the leg out. The whole purpose of all of these poses, I'm going to do 3 or 4 more. The whole purpose is to prepare you for that auspicious pose or the Siddhasana so that you can sit comfortably. And then switch. So first start out by crossing. This bottom leg, by the way, is really just a prop. It's like if my arms can't reach, it's an easier way of getting this top leg in toward me. That's all that one's really doing. Once it does come in, let's say I can get the shin onto the chest, then I'm going to try wrapping the arm around, cradling this top leg, and then extending this leg out and down. Now this other leg is doing something quite important, and you can see that there's a problem on this side. I hope you watch this video and you see the problem on this side. The other side, I was able to do this whole pose. On this side, this hip is preventing me. And I think one of the reasons is the way I run, the way I walk and run and sit. But I think another reason is I always have this left leg out further away from me. And so this hip is a lot less flexible. But another thing this other leg is doing, this long one, is its hip flexor muscle is stretching. That's important. That muscle needs to be stretched out or your low back can't let go. Your low back will always inhibit movement in the hips. I could do this one a little bit longer. Now bring the soles of the feet together, reach through, grab the edges of the feet and pull the feet towards you. Even though I said pull your feet, this is another time to be aware that you're not sickling, you're not moving the ankles. Keep the ankles straight. So my elbows are pushing my knees out and my hands are pulling the soles of the feet together, but my hands aren't curling the feet. Don't turn the feet too far in towards your face. All right, let's try this again. So come up safely and carefully. You can roll up or roll to your side. I'm going to try this without the blanket this time, see if there's been any change. So from a seated pose, let's start here. Take one foot. I'm going to start with the other foot. Bring it into the upper thigh. You remember, this is the one where I get the cramp. And then take the other leg. I'm going to fold this foot into that little crease behind the knee, and then try to take this other foot and fold it into the crease here. So I kind of move some skin, some flesh and some clothing, and see if I can get those two. This one doesn't feel seated. My hips are down, but this knee is way up. This one's pretty far down, but this one's way up. I got a lot of movement. I need some more stretching on this hip, obviously. Let's try the other side. So I'll bring this foot in first this time. It's on the upper inner thigh. It could be really up at the inner thigh. And then take this other leg, wrestle it around, create a space between your back of your thigh and your calf muscle. Tuck that in there. Pull this foot up so that they're two in their little crease. Same thing. This one's way up. That's way stuck there. It almost seems like this leg is too short to go around. None of that feels good to me. I'm certainly not going to go any further. Let's do this again. Take one leg out, one leg in. Face the long leg. Reach up, inhale. Exhale, extend back. Inhale up. Exhale, forward fold. Remember the sacrum, the triangle. There's a triangle on the back. Keep that triangle hinged forward. Give me 2 long breaths here. Another one. Then push your hands into the floor and exhale to roll up. Take one hand behind you, behind this knee, and then roll a little bit onto that side. Lift up onto the knee and then begin circling this top arm. Now, you may not be able to lift up. That's okay. Just do some circles with this top arm. Hips down, hips up, whatever you want. Inhale, exhale, and come down. Now we'll try the other side. So we're really practicing sitting. Really practicing sitting, and that becomes important because in order to come together and notice things, we have to slow down. We have to still the mind. So I'm really seating this foot into that inner thigh because I noticed before I had trouble doing that. Inhale up, turn towards the straight leg, get the sits bones rooted, and then hinge forward. Come down. Remember the sacrum hinging forward, the sacrum hinging forward, not just curling and rounding the back. Notice the difference, the sacrum. Don't get drowsy here. Remember, there's a reason I'm chattering at you today, and that is so that you will precisely administer sensory input. There's really little to be gained by working haphazardly, by just trying a pose and trying a pose and trying a pose, because you don't know why you're doing it. It's like driving your car and not knowing where you're going. You might end up someplace you want to be, but most of the time you just won't know where you are while you're there. On this exhale, push off, roll up. This is where we take one hand kind of behind the back, the short leg. And then if you can, lean over, lean onto that hip, and then lift up onto the top of the knee. Now circle this top arm. 2, and then come down. So we just stretch a little bit around the hips. Let's come into hands and knees. And downward dog. So we already have stretched the hamstrings. We already have worked around some of the hip the hip flexors and the cartilage around the hips. We've already done that. You don't have to do downward dog in every practice. I'm just trying to get you to stand up. So come into standing. Don't go through the motions. Move around until there's some sensory input. So that's what I'm doing. You see me doing all of this crawling around. I'm trying to find some sensory input. So once you get into Tadasana, once you come back into Tadasana, feet, knees, hip bones. Feet, knees, hip bones, all in a straight line. Then remember that upper back, that whacking stick? Pull the shoulders back onto the back. Wiggle the toes around and press the toes down. Now, bend and straighten your knees a few times. What I want to teach you here is that the triangle of your base remains, even when we're on our feet. Now, if you were a four-legged animal and you tried to stand on your back legs, it would require a lot of figuring out, or you'd really have to do some balancing. We have to figure out that balance too. We're shaped a little bit differently, but not that differently. We have to figure out how to balance this torso, this spine, on two hips over two pillars. So wiggle around and figure that out. Imagine this is the first time you're standing on 2 feet and you have to figure that out. Then keep bending your knees so they never straighten. Keep them bent. You can circle them around left, right, forward, and back. Just don't let them go straight right now. Then straighten them. Lock the knees. Lock. So lock means when the two bones are stacked so perfectly over each other that the weight of gravity has them locked, like Legos or blocks that stack, as opposed to like a dog's leg is always bent. So they can't lock their knees. They have to always have energy holding their bodies up. So unlock your knees, lock your knees. Unlock your knees. You do this all the time. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let's say you're tired and you're standing, online and so you do that. This leg is holding everything and there's no energy. And then this leg. So that's locked when you're putting all your bones in alignment. That's unlocked. So keep the knees unlocked because in yoga, we want the flow of energy to constantly move. Bring the hands together. Inhale, circle up. Exhale, extend up and back. Inhale up. Exhale, dive to forward fold. Step back into downward dog. Hinge forward into plank pose, lower all the way down. Now from here, rise up into a cobra. So a cobra is just the upper back muscles. The legs are together, the toes are pointed and pushing down, but it's just the upper back muscles curling back. Remember the whacking stick? So the upper back is squeezing and lifting. 2 breaths here. And then push back into child's pose. All right, this is the first time we're really letting the muscles relax. So far, the muscles have been engaged. So don't go through the motion here, even in child's pose. Breathe in, breathe out, and disperse energy through your body. 2 breaths. Precisely feel the sensory input. You are governing how energy is moving through your body. Don't get drowsy. Come up into like a kneeling pose. I'm going to grab my blocks for this camel. So same, I'm still standing just like I was in Tadasana, but I'm just on my knees now, and these legs are still having to balance me. So the camel pose is probably a really good example of how we have to learn to balance on 2 legs because we're not used to this. Walk the blocks so that they're next to your ankles behind you. If your hands reach, they reach. If they don't, start here. Bring your hands to your low back or to the back of your pelvis and push the pelvis forward. Now keep pushing the pelvis forward. As you do, imagine strings pulling up in front of your thighs. Up, 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 up. Now arch the upper back and then see if your hands reach the blocks. If they don't, try bringing your hands to the back of your hips or your hamstrings, but keep pulling up the front. So I want you to work on the upper back, extending that little curve. It's right kind of right next to under your armpits is where you're hinging. If there's a pole right there. And squeeze the shoulder blades together and then release. In fact, let's do that one more time. If you have a roller, use the roller and put it in your upper back, right at the base of your shoulder blade tips, and extend back. All right, since the roller is really high, I'm going to use a block to keep my head from falling backward. I'm going to take this a little bit further down so I can feel the curve of the upper back. If I don't have a roller, I would use the blanket. Make it like a tube by folding it in half. Same thing. Put that in my upper back. This time I don't think I need the block. And let that upper back. So as long as there's something going across between the bottom of your shoulder blades, you're going to get that benefit. This is correcting your posture. All right, one more time. Come all the way up. Come to that seated pose. I'm going to take the training wheels off and just come to Siddhasana. One ankle in front of the other. Rock, rock, rock. And then hold on to the knees. Pull the shoulder blades down and back. Close your eyes. I just want to take a minute to meditate the mind on this tetrahedron. So picture a pyramid. You are a pyramid. There's a triangle on the floor, and then there's 3 other triangles that make a pyramid up to the crown of the head. The crown of the head is important. At the top of this pyramid is a light, like a beacon, like a lighthouse beacon. With your breath now, draw energy up the sides and the lines of the triangle. Or triangle, 3 things come together. And light up the beacon at the top of the head. All right, this is all we're going to do. So I'm going to spend the 3 or 4 minutes of Shavasana here in seated pose. If you want to go all the way down, then do that. But I would encourage you to try sitting today. I'm not even going to put music on. Music is wonderful. But for now, I want you to practice being still. Remember that triangle. Make that triangle a pyramid. Keep going. We are taught to move and behave in the external world. But we were never taught how to be still and examine what is within ourselves. Keep going. Yoga is training the mind and body to avoid the distractions, in particular of the mind itself. Keep the body active. All the things that we practiced were for this moment. All of the other joys of the world are transient and momentary, but the joy of meditation is immense and everlasting. Inhale deeply. Exhale. Inhale deeply. Exhale. Open your eyes. So make your way back up into the world that's outside of you. So if you were laying down, come back up and sit up. Just bring your hands together. There's nothing in this life that you can't handle. You've got this. You have to trust this inner guidance. All we have to do is be still and come back to it. Let's just take a breath here together. Inhale and circle up. As you exhale, bring the hands back into the Anjali Mudra, the symbol of peacefulness and connectivity. I bow to you and I wish you well. Namaste. Thank you so much. Join me again.